today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about why men try to help, but it's always perceived as them trying to control or dominate. The truth is that both men and women in these situations are operating from deeply ingrained programming. You need to tap into your love for her and get that she processes things, because you love her, see that she processes things differently and help her in her own process instead of imposing your process on her. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about why she thinks you're trying to control her and how to change that if you want to. The truth is that men often feel frustrated in their marriage because they believe they're doing the right thing. They're working hard, they're offering solutions, they're trying to fix the problems of their family's life, and often they're trying to help their wives in the same way. At least that's what they think that they're doing. But they still feel unappreciated, unheard, even disrespected, or maybe even resented. Meanwhile, the wives, the women, they don't feel heard. They feel like their feelings are being dismissed or glossed over. They feel like they're being labeled as irrational or drama queens. The truth is that both men and women in these situations are operating from deeply ingrained programming, unconscious programming. Some of it is societal, some of it's from our families, some of it's maybe for some childhood trauma, and let's not dismiss the fact that sometimes men actually are trying to be controlling. Women are not wrong about that. We're going to talk about all of that today, how to unearth this and how to separate the desire to help from the desire to move in a certain direction, we're going to call it. Let's throw out the word control, because control is a freaking illusion anyway. What do I mean by that? How much control do you have over the thoughts that go on between your ears? Very little, if any. I mean, truthfully, sometimes thoughts come up in my head and I don't even know where they came from when they first come up. When I think about it, I know where they came from. I don't have control over that, but I manage that, right? So control is an illusion. Let's just throw out control. We don't choose how we think. We inherit our operating system, our programming. The question is your operating system serving you or sabotaging you? And I can't even go any further without talking about what do I mean by an operating system. We talk about this all the time in Rich in Relationship. This is the core of the work that we do here with couples and individuals who want to have marriages that are blossoming, growing, that are synergistic. Marriages that are synergistic instead of transactional, let's call it. Transactional meaning you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That may work in business, but it does not work very well in marriage, or it only works for a short time. Our unconscious mind is our operating system. It's 80% of who we are. And that programming is laid in from age 0 to 7. So most of our operating system is how to survive, get by, thrive in our family of origin. And outside of that, in the school that we go to. And outside of that, the neighborhood that we go to. Anywhere that we're interacting from age 0 to 7. All those strategies are laid in by the people we have the most contact with in those ages. Now, let's be real. Every person develops at their own pace. It might be 0 to 6 for some. It might be 0 to 9 for others. But what we know from studies of the human mind is the operating system, the part of us that works automatically in social situations, which, by the way, includes partnerships like marriage, that part is laid in before we're adults. And just like we know how to drive a car without thinking about it, just like we know how to walk without thinking about it, just like we breathe without thinking about it, we often interact socially and in our marriage of this operating system. So when I ask you, is it serving you or sabotaging you? I know from personal experience, the answer is yes. It is serving me, and sometimes it's sabotaging me. Sometimes my unconscious mind is not in alignment with my conscious mind. It's almost like I'm battling myself. Oh my God. But what we do is we tend to transfer that onto our partners. It's not me, it's her or him. We may notice that we have behaviors that aren't working, but we tend to blame them for it because the prospect that we're out of sync with ourselves, the prospect that there's some part of ourselves that's not helping us to succeed is beyond thinking, because we don't know how to deal with it. We don't know how to handle it. We don't have the tools for that as far as we know. And a lot of what we do at Rich in Relationship is give people the tools. And sometimes it's like being in a box and the instructions are on the outside. Sometimes you need somebody to read the instructions to you from the outside. And that, I'm going to tell you, that works. All right, but let's move on. The model that governs everything in terms of relationships is be, do, have. Being is about how we feel. Doing is how we act based on how we feel. And have is the result that we get. This sense of sabotage comes up when we do something that we think should get one result, but we get a different result. Men, I'm talking to you right now. You get into a discussion, you're with your wife. She comes home and she wants to download with you about work. Or maybe you come home from work and she wants to download with you about the house. She wants to download with you. And you do what you are wired to do. Men are wired to get the train to the station. There's a goal that they're going to. And so they want to take care of anything that might be in the way of that goal. Your wife downloads and you go, oh, let me help you. Right away, you go into, you know what you could do is this. You could do that. You could do this. Now, that's a very male perspective. Men tend to focus more on doing and less on how they're feeling because of the wiring of their brain. And go see previous episodes of Rich in Relationship if you want to learn more about that. Brains and testosterone, brains and estrogen. Women, on the other hand, start with being, with emotion. They swim much more in those waters because of the wiring of their brain, how they're wired. For thousands of years, women were childbearers and child rearers, and they built networks of support to make sure that their children in their home stayed safe emotionally and were functional for thousands of years, making sure that everything was in alignment so that they could get what they needed done. They could feed the family, they could protect the family, et cetera, et cetera. That's why women tend to be more about emotion and men tend to be more about action. And because our programming, guys, I'm going to talk as a guy now, our programming is to fix, to achieve, and to build. This has been great in terms of survival. But when it comes into conflict, I'm going to call it, with the woman's need to explore the emotional foundation of something, it's a freaking disaster. Your wife comes home and she starts talking about something at work or something at home or something at school or wherever it's happening. And what she needs to do, what women naturally do before they get to acting, is they process emotion. They don't just process their own emotion. They think about how the emotion, what were the other people thinking? What was the interaction between them and the other person? How safe or unsafe might it be? They naturally process all that. They need to do that before they get to addressing the problem. And sometimes they need to do, by the way, guys, sometimes they need to do that for days. Sometimes they need to do that for weeks. They need to do that until they feel complete. So guys, when they come to us with a problem at work, oh, I have this person I'm working with, and no matter how hard I try, I just can't seem to get them to do this thing that they need to do, and it's making my job harder, and I'm so frustrated. And I can see that they have stuff going on with their own family, and I understand, and I just don't know what to do with this. As soon as they go to that place, where we go is, well, I've had that experience and this is what worked for me. The second we do that, that's a big red flag for your wife. Number one, she's not done processing. So she feels violated, right? Instead of allowing her process, we've gone right to doing before she was ready to go to doing. So she feels like we violated her process. But number two, because of her history with her dad or her mom or whatever, and her history with you, she is sure that you're trying to manipulate her, control her, change her. One of those three or all of those three. And it's unconscious. It's not like a light bulb goes off in her conscious mind and she goes, oh, look at that evil guy. That's not what happens. It triggers something on the inside in her operating system. She's got a strategy for when her emotional processing is interrupted that looks like Why are you interrupting me? Why are you trying to control me? Why are you trying to manipulate me? What's going on here? Red flag, red flag, red flag. And when she does that, because you've shared your wisdom from your own experience and she doesn't receive it, how do you feel? You feel disrespected. You feel attacked. You feel like she's dismissing this incredibly valuable contribution. Now, I'm not going to tell you that your contribution isn't valuable. I'm going to tell you that the timing may not be right. And what happens there over time is the husband and wife starts doing a dance like this. And here's the other way that it goes is you come home from work and you have a problem you want to solve and you start downloading it with your wife. And what she goes is, oh, honey, that must be so frustrating for you. And you don't want to talk about how frustrating it is. You want her to understand the situation so she can help you solve the problem. And when you don't receive her natural inclination to explore the emotion, which for her is how she solves problems, you feel like you're not understood and again, disrespected. And she feels once again like she's not heard. These are like the classic clashes between men and women in terms of communication. And I'm telling you, this is why women consistently feel in their marriages that men are trying to control them and manipulate them. And sometimes, guys, I'm going to call this out. You are trying to control them and manipulate them. You're tired of hearing about that problem. You just want their problem fixed. This is the third time they come to talk to you about that problem at work, or the fourth time, or the fifth time. And I'm telling you this with passion because I have been there. And you're sick of hearing about it. But instead of saying, hey, honey, this is the fifth time you've talked about this. I feel like there's something I'm missing. You go to, babe, I've given you the answer. Why do you keep coming back to me? I'm done. I've actually said this. I'm done with hearing about this problem. Don't come and talk to me about that anymore. And the second you do that, you cut off communication with your wife. And I'm not saying your frustration is invalid. What I'm saying is the way that you're channeling it and the way that you're handling it is what's destroying communication between your wife. And it's why she thinks you're trying to control and manipulate her. Here's another example, all right? You and your wife are fighting about money. Bet you've never done that. 76% of all marriages fight about money, so I'm pretty sure you have. And even the ones that say they don't have had some kind of financial battle, let's be honest. You try and lay out a logical plan for cutting costs. You think you're being helpful. But how does your wife feel? Your wife feels emotionally invalidated because she was sharing her feelings about stress, not asking for help with the financial problem yet. You feel disrespected. She feels unheard. You feel like you're not understood. She feels like you're dismissing her, trying to control her. She feels like you're trying to drive her down a specific path for solving the problem without even fully understanding. You don't even fully understand the problem, in her opinion, because you haven't felt out the emotional part. Now, let me tell you that both sides, you're both right. All right. It is super important to have a goal and to work towards it. And in a future episode, we're going to talk about when men should make the decision and move forward anyway. But in these conversations, that's not an option because she's right too. You need to understand the emotional ecology of any situation before you move forward. If you are driving your train down the tracks and Snidely Whiplash has put a little old lady on the tracks and you just run her over, you have made a huge mistake. The truth is that men need to embrace their feminine side. They need to explore the emotional ecology of their family more. And women are already good at being goal-oriented. Ladies, if you're listening to this, the only thing that's missing for you is you haven't figured out that your man is a train on tracks. And if you want him to, you can't get him off the tracks, but you can get him to stop at the station of empathy, compassion, and understanding. You can get him to stop at the station of seeing the world through your eyes and feeling the world as you feel it. But it takes effort, patience. It's going to take patience because you're both hardwired for this crap. Guys, the solution for you is to lead with present, not action. Oh yeah, there are going to be situations where you need to act regardless of what's going on with your wife or anyone else. But most of the situations, I would say 90 to 95% of the life situations, you don't need to do that. There are going to be situations that come up where you just know it's the right thing and nobody seems to see it but you. But you know it in your heart, and if that's the truth, then sometimes you need to just march forward to it. But when you're talking with your wife about finances in general, that may not be the moment, right? Because what we're talking about there is we're talking about rules of life. that you haven't created around money and that you haven't agreed on about money. Or maybe you've got rules of life and she's got rules of life, but you're not on the same page. One of the things that's vital to any discussion about money or any other key area in a partnership is there needs to be rules of marriage, let's call it. I almost think rules is the wrong word. It's better way to put it would be you need to agree on the frame that's going to guide you both. So guys, you need to exercise exploring emotion. And we talked about I statements 10 gazillion times on this show. It sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, it looks like what's going on with you is you're really frustrated because this person you've been working with just can't seem to get it. Did I get that? Not right. You never, right and wrong are terrible words for any marriage. Did I get it? And see if you got it. And if you didn't get it, you keep working at it till you want to make sure first that you're really hearing her. Because guys, we tend to go to what's the problem? How can I fix it? And we don't always really hear what our wives are saying. Sometimes our operating system interprets words that she's using different than she means it. And that's why I statements are so key. That reflective listening is so important. Actually, what I gave you was an example of reflective listening. I think if you're not getting it, you want to use an I statement. An I statement goes, I feel like as hard as I'm trying, when I'm trying to understand what you're saying, I just miss it because maybe we're using different words. Like that, I feel frustrated when I feel frustrated. I'm a guy, I can't even do this. I feel frustrated, the feeling, when I'm trying to understand what you're talking about and I'm missing it because this has been going on for years and I really want to understand you. It's got to be the because needs to be about me, not about her. All right. So that's reflective listening and I statements. More on the website if you're interested. All right. So we need to get their feelings first. We need to explore the ecology with them first. And only when they know that we have heard them and understand or really heard their emotions about the whole situation, only when that feels settled for them, might we say to them, I think I know a way through this. Would you be interested in hearing it? And she might say no. And if she says no, you leave it alone. Oh, I'm going to tell you, as a guy, that's the hardest part. No? Okay. Then she comes back and talks about it again. And that's all you can do. If you go in and try and offer her a solution, it will inevitably, without her permission, without her asking for it or giving you permission, it will be perceived as manipulation, control, or interference. You need to get that, fellas. And ladies who are listening to this, if you're hearing what I'm laying down about your husband, you need to lay this down for your husband. You need to explain to him, honey, please don't try to offer me help until I ask for it, or offer it to me in a way where I can refuse it if I want to. The most important thing for me is that you hear what I'm feeling and what the feelings are in the situation, and that you allow me to explore it as thoroughly as possible. I can't make a decision or won't make a decision until I feel, I understand, I get. Understand is almost the wrong word. Understand cerebral. Until I get the emotional situation. Lay it out for him. Explain this to him. Refer him to this podcast episode. The goal isn't to change who you are, fellas or ladies. The goal is to align your natural strengths with conscious intention. And ladies, if your guy is coming to you to talk to you about a situation, he does not want to explore the in-depth emotional depth of it, every facet of it. He might want to, you might want to call out things he's missing for sure. You might want to help him to make sure that he understands all the emotions he's having for sure. But he doesn't want to go deep into each emotion. Get that when he comes to you with something, he wants to move forward. And so what he's asking of you is that first you understand what's going on with him. First you want to understand where it is he wants to get. Next, where it is that he is, that's where you might help him with some emotion. And finally, what needs to shift in order for him to take actions that will get him there. And you might want to educate him that very often what needs to shift is first how he feels. So guys, I'm prescribing this to you like here's what you do, all right? But here's how you need to feel when your wife comes to you. You need to feel like you're at peace. You need to feel like you need to exercise your patience. You need to tap into your love for her and get that she processes things because you love her. See that she processes things differently and help her in her own process instead of imposing your process on her. And I trust me when I tell you, she sees this as an imposition. I could go on forever about this, but I've been running long on these podcasts, so we're going to wrap it up here. So in a nutshell, men need to learn to be more empathetic and emotionally tuned in, but also men, we need to think about where are we coming from emotionally in any situation. If we're feeling anger and trying to encapsulate it and act like we're in another place, that will be perceived as inauthentic and manipulative in any situation, but particularly with your wife. And so we really need to start getting in touch with how are we feeling? And if we're feeling angry, there's a process that I recommend to all of the couples I work with called clearing, right? Clearing is where like you go out on date night and you've got some emotions you need to unload from the day before you can really be present. All right, let's clear. And so for 3 minutes, each of you clears what happened in your day and how you were feeling about it, any loose ends, so that you can just let it go and move on. If you walk into a conversation with your wife, she's coming to you with a problem and you haven't cleared, you need to say to her, honey, I really want to be present for you. Would you mind if I just cleared for a moment? I'm really frustrated about, you know what? Sometimes when you come to me with this, I get a little frustrated and I love you and I really want to be present for you. Right? That clearing, taking you from the emotion that you're experiencing that's out of sync with where you want to be because you love and care for her, will help you move to that place where you want and need to be because you care for her. And wives, clearing is going to work for you also, especially when you get frustrated and you think he doesn't want to hear it. Hey, if you want to learn more about this, if you want to master servant leadership, emotional leadership, join us at richinrelationship.com. There's going to be some men's groups starting in the future. I want you to stay tuned. All the tools you need for your marriage are at richinrelationship.com. Thank you again for listening. Have a wonderful day and an amazing tomorrow.